Hey everyone, this is the ShutInBakas. My name is Chris. Today we're back for Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Part 2. I'm sorry for the lack of uploads. I need to stop saying that because it just keeps happening, but it is what it is. We haven't talked about Jobless Reincarnation for quite a while since the first episode aired, so I just wanted to give my opinions on how it's going mid-season, because we're about 6 episodes in, I think, at the moment. And it's just as good as the first season. What can I say? What did you expect? So basically, I'm gonna complete spoiler warning if you haven't caught up yet. Go do that now. I'm gonna be talking about stuff that's been happening in the latest episodes, and yeah, just keep that in mind. So basically, Rudius and Eris and everybody left the demon continent a lot quicker than I thought they would, actually. I was surprised that it wasn't a drawn-out thing, but no, they actually left relatively quickly. And Rudius got captured by these beast people, which we come to find was where Ghislaine came from, and we got to meet her brother, and how she's not exactly respected in her hometown because she was kind of a monster, a maniac. And it was a sweet little story, really, learning about the village and their morals and everything. And I think that was a good arc. And we also got to meet the best character, Gisu. So, you know, it's a win-win, really. Aside from that, when we were in the demon continent, we actually found out what Roxy's been doing. She's been travelling with some of Paul's teammates, I guess, party members, which is a dwarf and some horny elf. And overall, we haven't seen much of them, because I'm guessing they're still looking around the demon continent for Rudius and everyone, even though they're long gone. And they just kind of dropped that, which I find really weird, how they introduce her back into the show, and then they just kind of shove her to the side, and you kind of stop remembering that she's there. Like, honestly, for the past few episodes, I've completely forgotten about Roxy. Like, completely. Like, she's one of my favourite characters. Like, every character in the show is good. But, like, the fact that you don't remember she's there is kind of an interesting thing, because, you know, she was put back into the show, but then it's like, oh, but not really. So, I feel like she's going to show up in the end of the season, probably. Like, they'll have their bittersweet reuniting. I feel like that's how it's going to be. Speaking of bittersweet reuniting, Rudius met his father again in the latest episodes, which was really weird. It's kind of like a good character study for Paul, because I always knew he wasn't a good guy. Like, don't get me wrong there. I always thought he was a bit of a shithead. But his true colours really did show there. When things get tough, he really does just become a alcoholic maniac who will blame things on his 11-year-old son. And yeah, like, the entire time, Jared and I were just sitting there going, bro, he's like a child. Why do you expect him to know how to do these things? And to be fair, we are in a fantasy setting. Children had more going for them at that time in this world. But also the fact is, Rudius is an extremely smart and, like, very... I kind of, like, struggle to find the words, but, like, he's just, like, a very smart guy. He's way ahead of everybody else in his age range. So Paul probably thinks he's a lot older than he actually is. Which, to be fair, he kind of is. But yeah, so Paul kind of launched into him, like, well, why didn't you see my message? Or why are you here? Why do you sound like you had so much fun while everybody else has been off in misery and terrible times? And it had a pretty good moment. There was actually quite a few good action moments, where the first time Rudius found Paul, they had a basic reenactment of the fight that they had before Rudius got sent off to Eris's house. And that was cool, because Rudius actually won that time, technically. And that's because he has become much stronger. His magic is much stronger with his new staff, and he's got his foresight eye, so he can pretty much see any attacks incoming, so he can dodge them, and I think he's pretty OP at the moment. But I can tell he's definitely outclassed when it comes to other characters. And yeah, it's interesting to see that. And also the bar fight scene between Rudius and Paul, that was entertaining because we basically just had Rudius get like laid into by Paul, just like, completely demeaned and told off for just surviving. Like, what do you mean you couldn't do more? And it's like, it was really fun watching Rudius actually start caring, and is such, like, it's fairly underdone, but I think the fact that Rudius constantly develops as a person, not just as a character, is an intriguing part, because Rudius is always, like, treating this as a game, like it's an RPG, right? He's treating this like it's just another isekai, like, oh, whatever. But then he'll have these moments of realization of, if I die, what's next? Or, he wants to live this life to the fullest, but he keeps treating it like a game. And he's struggling to get out of his, his older life's thoughts of treating everything like it's a joke and being his old self. But he needs to be more than that, and the fights with Paul and the conversations he's had with him really did put that into motion for him. And it was quite a heartwarming thing, really, because afterwards, obviously, they made up, because Paul realised he's a child. What was I doing when I was 11? Shitting? Probably. But yeah, basically it was it was a very bittersweet reunion between the two. And I think it was really good because for the entire time this season had been going, I'd been wondering, what happened to the other characters? Like, what's happened while they were gone, What happened to every other character that we've become invested in, like Sylphie and Zenith and the children and all that stuff. You kind of see snippets of them in the outro and the OP, but nothing concrete. Like, sometimes those don't even make sense. They're just like representations of what's happening. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's pretty dang good. The animation, top notch as always. I've only ever had some minor complaints with the fact that they've been using CG in crowds here and there, but it's so unnoticeable you'd really struggle to tell. It's just I'm very susceptible to it, apparently. And the music is actually surprisingly good. It's got like the culture difference music. Like, you feel like whenever they're in a different place, the music changes to fit that place. And that's not something a lot of shows do. Or at least they don't do it well. So I think it does a really good job in that regard. Also, the amount of OPs that this show has had is pretty insane. They've had the second OP from the first season at the beginning, then they had the second OP, and then they had a third OP for this newest episode. It's like, how many OPs are they going to make? It's ridiculous. By the way, I've already bought them all on iTunes, so go do that if you like the music from the show. They're only like $2 a pop in New Zealand, so they're probably not much other places. And really, just to sum it all up, Eris is becoming a bit more of a fun character. I mean, she was kind of like the generic tsundere who would always be eluded, but she's actually becoming like more of a mature character. Even though, yes, she does have her outbursts because, yes, she's a tsundere, but the point is she's having her moments here and there, and character developments. And people like Rijerd, he's not really being developed that much. His character arc is kind of done, I think. He's mainly just the bodyguard at the moment. But overall, every character has had a lot of growth. Like, you name a character and it's there. It's kind of like the guy that Rudius was originally going to save when he, saw him at the beginning of, like, episode 5, I think it was. Went off to save him, and he said, hey, that guy looks familiar. It turns out that guy was one of the guys bullying Sylphie back in the village. And that's why Paul was saving them, because they're running around saving all the people who have been zapped away. And it's just stuff like that. It's like building the world is really well done in this show. Like, the more you think into it, the more it's like, damn, okay, that makes sense. That was well thought out. So, yeah, it's always the problem with Mushoku Tensei. It's such an amazing show. The music is great, the visuals are fantastic, the characters are good, very good, I'll even say that. But the main issue is the lewdness and the stuff that you can't show to newbies or people who don't like that stuff. It's the fact that every time Rudius says anything pervy or like sees a suggestive angle of Eris, is kind of like, you just roll your eyes like, again, come on, man. Like, I get it, that's meant to be the sense of humor that this show has going for it, but it's kind of just annoying after a while. You just kind of just don't care about it. It's like, yeah, okay, Rudius, just get over it. How many times are you going to have to see her like this for you to grow up? I mean, I guess the point is we're meant to be reminded that Rudius isn't a good person, or isn't a, like, morally good person sometimes. He's a human, and he's a bad one at that, in human, like, modern day society, but back in those days, he's more or less fine, you know, he won't be sent to prison for eyeing up a woman, but it's still not nice. And, yeah, it's basically just kind of like, he kind of needs to grow up on that, but from what I've heard from people telling me, like, soft spoilers about the light novel, apparently he does stay like that for pretty much the entire show. It does simmer down, don't get me wrong, but, like, he does have that part of him, and I think that will always be there because he's always just going to be that otaku nerd, right? So he's always going to be there in that regard, but I can deal with it as long as it doesn't go too far, right? As long as it doesn't get a bit too risque for my liking, let's say that. Because while I don't mind ecchi content, like I don't mind, High School DxD and other shows like How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, which I'll be making a review on soon, it's shows like this where it's like you don't really want it in the first place because the character designs aren't really, I won't say they're not attractive, it's just they're not attractive in that way. It's kind of like you don't want to see these characters go through it because it's like you see them in a higher light than that. Whereas in the cutesy art style of How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, that kind of goes hand in hand with its ecchi because those two things are kind of intertwined. But this show kind of feels like it's having an identity crisis when it comes to that because the characters are very mature looking and realistic, I feel. That's the issue. And yeah, it's just a bit of a weird one. It's very situational. People can have different opinions. My personal opinion is I'm dealing with it. I've watched anime enough for it to be just second nature at this point. I don't really care. I'm not a big fan of it. I'd rather it wasn't there entirely, but hey, this is how it is, and to be honest, it kind of does add to the story in a way with Rudius's character development, so I'll deal with it, you know. It's something like that. Anyway, I've rambled enough. I just wanted to say again sorry for the lack of uploads. Just been kind of not feeling it recently, and I haven't been watching a lot of shows, so that doesn't help. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Please hit the like button if you liked the video, dislike it if you didn't. Although, apparently, that's going to be redundant, because you guys won't be able to see how many dislikes a video has soon, so that's something. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, ding the bell button if you want to know when we're uploading, and leave me a comment telling me what you've been thinking of the second part of Jobless Reincarnation, and, how's it going? What have you liked about it so far? Anyway, that's about it. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.